with Israel's bold operations in Lebanon over these past couple of weeks, including the incredible pager attack that took out thousands of Hezbollah commanders, including the direct targeting and successful targeting of many of Hezbollah's leaders, basically almost all of Hezbollah's leaders, including the man at the top, Hassan Nasrallah. The question arises: what's next? What's next for Lebanon? What's next for this war? And of course, Hezbollah has not yet been defeated. So what's immediately next is continuing what has been done over the past couple of weeks, hopefully with complete and total victory over, at the very least, Hezbollah. What appears to be the next step by Israel is a ground operation. According to some reports, that's going to start in the next few hours. Hopefully, they know what they're doing, in the sense that enough has been done from the air to make sure that such a ground operation results in what it's achieves what it is meant to achieve at as low as possible a cost to Israel, in particular in terms of lives of soldiers. But if that operation is successful, there is a next question. What is next for Lebanon? What is next for the Lebanese government? Who will be in the Lebanese government? Will it be the current government that not only allows Hezbollah to operate, but has actually said that they will fight alongside Hezbollah? Then said something about the prime minister said something about implementing UN resolution 1701. Once Israel started doing stuff, he suddenly is ready to make sure Hezbollah is 29 kilometers from the border, which of course is insufficient in terms of Israel actually living in peace and Israelis not being afraid of daily attacks from the north. Yeah, what is next, and what I think should very much be the next step for Lebanon is for the good people in Lebanon, the ones we've seen on this channel in videos, when Hezbollah wants to fire from their village, or when refugees from the south of Lebanon, Hezbollah strongholds, try to enter their towns and villages, and they get rejected. What needs to happen next is for those people, the good people who may not, share our views, may not be fully rational, but certainly want to at least attempt to live their lives without war being forced on them, as Hezbollah has done, for them to step up. And for them to step up probably, very likely, means a Lebanese civil war. There already has been one. We see the results today, but hopefully something which Israel can help direct in the right direction. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm joined by Daniel. Daniel, your thoughts on Lebanon the day after?
So, well, quickly, I just wanna do some news. IDF has started posting on Twitter everyone who they killed, so that's great. They've killed head of the Lebanon branch of the PFLP, the Palestinian Front for Liberation of Palestine. So that's great to see. This was a strike by the IDF. And also Fatih Sherif, the head of Lebanon branch, the Hamas terrorist organization, who was also an UNRWA member, and he was head of the UNRWA Teachers Union in Lebanon. And they talked about him at the UN, how UNRWA has to be protected. So maybe there's a whole episode there, but great for IDF for doing it. And of course, it again shows how UNRWA, how much Hamas aligned UNRWA is. But then, so actually going to Lebanon and the actual or the potentiality of a civil war. So whenever people, I don't like how oftentimes people seem to talk too carelessly about civil war. Someone who comes to mind is Tim Pool. He has been yearning for a civil war since the 2020 election, and he has been saying it. If you look up his Twitter, it's like every second tweet is about it. And when you have a civil war, you have to remember, the side who loses, they don't disappear. They are still there. And so even when it came to the Lebanese civil war that happens, or this potential one, uh, which I'm not feeling very optimistic about happening. I cannot see who would be uh who would be the side who would basically stand there as a sort of, maybe not sort of like a pro-Israeli group, or something like that, but let's say trying to stop, trying to prevent the Israeli invasion in a way, trying to kick out Hezbollah or something like that. That would need an insane amount of cooperation between different parties, and basically agreeing that Hezbollah has to go. And I'm really unsure that that can happen. I've been looking up, for those who don't know, Lebanese political system, or election system, is one of the, I feel like this is the second time I'm saying about it. Oh, the first time I was talking about it was of France. That's also weird. But Lebanese election system is weird in the sense that the seats in the, I think, Chamber of Deputies, or their version of parliament, is basically appropriated based on religions. So after the Lebanese civil war, it used to be different before that, but after the Lebanese civil war, it's 50-50. 50 seats are for Muslims and 50 are for Christians. And also, president always has to be Maronite Christian, prime minister always have to be Sunni Muslim, speaker of parliament always have to be Shia Muslim, and deputy prime minister and deputy speaker of parliament always have to be Greek Orthodox Christians. So again, this whole mess, but it means you have Christians in the current government of Lebanon. What I've been seeing a bit is people saying, Lebanon needs to return to being more Christian, or the Christians in Lebanon need to stand up because they'll be better, or it will be something better. But the fact is, Christians are in many ways on the same side with the Muslims. They are in the government. They are, I think, one of the biggest parties is a Maronite Christian party. They hold um, they do have many positions in the government itself because of it. Uh, so talking about the civil war, I think in a sense, I can see something close to that happening if really uh, people are so fed up with Hezbollah that they will want to get rid of them at any cost, and will try to do everything they can to do it. But again, it would need an alignment of so many different parties that have been okay with Hezbollah and have been defending Hezbollah. I mean, the prime minister has been saying that attack on Hezbollah is attack on Lebanese sovereignty. So while this would be better alternative for Lebanon, basically getting rid of Hezbollah, uh, at some point you have to realize, if you involve yourself with a terrorist organization and you let them take over so much of your government, and you allow them so much of the power, uh, at some point you will become them and they will become you. And basically, these two sides are intertwined so much that they cannot be separated.
So I'm not as pessimistic as you are. I'm not fully optimistic, but I'll get to that in a second. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says Al Jazeera is busy spreading propaganda. Yeah, but the thing is, Al Jazeera is also always busy spreading propaganda. Actually, let me follow up on that after I read PC's other super chat. Thank you again for the second super chat. PC says, Razi, has Lebanon ever had diplomatic relations with Israel? No, they haven't. But yeah, so on the point about, so they're spreading propaganda, but they have been the whole time. And what you haven't seen is what we are seeing these past couple of weeks, which is people going out on the streets, celebrating, showing people are emboldened, the people who don't like Hezbollah. They might not be fully rational. We may have many disagreements with them, but I'll take that over people who are happy to die as long as they kill some Jews along the way. And Bonnie's comment also really clarifies this point about what effect Israel's recent operations have had. So Bonnie says, "Good news. I'm starting to see open criticism of the pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah demonstrators in Dearborn, Michigan, from the Arab population. That's a recent change. Thank you, Israel." Yeah, that's a recent change because why would anybody support? I know we have been, but why would anybody support people who refuse to support themselves? Which is what Israel has been doing for a year. It has been refusing to fully defend itself. And look at the kind of protests that we saw over the past year over Israel's half-ass operations in Gaza. Compare that to there's protests, there's criticism, there's condemnations, but it's not at the same level over the past couple of weeks when Israel is actually fighting a war properly. So yeah, people see weakness and they pounce, and people see Israel's current strength and they back off, and that is a sign and should be a sign to Israel that yeah, Netanyahu spoke today in English to the Iranian people. That's good, and what would speak even louder than those words are actions. When the time comes, I realize Israel is uh, focusing on Lebanon at the moment, but yeah, the time should come for Iran after the proxies for Iran itself to be targeted. Thank you, Bulmus, for the super chat. Bulmus says, at least there are Lebanese and Syrians, for that matter, who would be happy to work with us. No such people in Gaza. Yeah, that's true, and that needs to be remembered and reminded. People need to be reminded of that. There's no, uh, you know, there's no positive voices among the Palestinians that we've heard at all. So there's no possibility of peace on that front. Just a point about the possibility of Lebanese civil war. As I mentioned, they don't need to be even get to the point where Lebanon has diplomatic relations with Israel. What you need to get to is the point where Lebanon doesn't have a significant faction that wants to fight a war against Israel. And the way to get to that is to eliminate the current faction that wants that, and to make it clear to whoever remains that Israel will fight whoever wants to fight it preemptively. We're not going to wait until a year of rockets. And that will send a clear message. One thing Israel should absolutely not do, which the West unfortunately often does, is arm one of the sides. Say, okay, these people hate our enemies, so let's arm them. No, Israel can keep itself armed and fight whenever that's necessary. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean something about, there's no sort of pro-Israel position in Gaza, while there seems to be somewhere else. So whenever you have a civil war in a Middle Eastern country, or some sort of conflict, there's always a side that has a adjective free, and usually it's only when it comes to Palestine that the free means against Jews. But when I'm talking about like Free Syrian Army, and there was also like Free Lebanon, those were sort of like Western aligned, or at least West sort of supports that side. And that also happened during the Lebanese civil war, when Israel came in and established something resembling a state. And I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult. This can go many directions, and I'm wondering how many people in Lebanon, as you said, not necessarily pro-Israeli, but want to basically get rid of, change what's going on currently with the system. And it's hard to talk about, especially when it comes to nations that have this weird election system. Usually parliament is a good reflection of what the people think, but of course it's only what the people have thought last election. And last election was, I think, in 22 or 20, I think 22. So that has been a long time since. And as I've said, as whenever we talk about Lebanon, I know there are anti-Hezbollah political parties. Basically, any party currently in opposition seems to be sort of, let's say, the better alternative. So there are a lot of them. I mean, something. So one of the opposition political parties is led by Lebanese forces, by basically, I think, a guy who is leading the Lebanese forces. So there is opposition to Hezbollah that has uh, basically a good amount of even power, even if not directly political power. They have capital, they have something to work with, and yeah, the thing is now is the best time to do something, and I hope we will see some sort of opposition starting up, especially with the ground, the possible, is it confirmed? I think there are reports that ground invasion is coming and has already did in a certain aspects. But
Yeah.
when that starts to happen, when Beirut started getting bombing, when it was clear all of Lebanon is involved. It's not just Hezbollah. It's not we're just targeting Hezbollah, although even in Beirut they were targeting specifically Hezbollah. But they are attacking a capital of Lebanon. It's hard to sort of ignore that point. Once people start seeing that, once people start saying, yes, they mean it. They do consider Lebanon a part of Hezbollah, or the other way around. They do see a connection between these two things. And we have to really think, is it worth it to support the organization whose only purpose is to kill Jews, which has now led to the fact that they are coming to our nation, they are invading us actively, and who knows what will happen. You also mentioned the UN resolution about it. Yeah, it's always funny when these resolutions are always here, but it's only when Israel starts doing something, when they start being actually considered. Because my favorite point to mention is the fact when Israel came to the UN Security Council saying, "Hey, Hezbollah is violating this resolution. Do you agree?" And UN says, "Yes, we agree," and then chirps after that because nothing happened from that. But I imagine the next session of the UN Security Council is already wrapping up. Sorry, it's already making sure to happen as soon as possible, so they can vote against Israel again. Specifically, they don't even have to draft a resolution. They already have one.
Yeah. Um, Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says Iran needs a change of direction. Yeah, and again, that kind of change of direction could be aided by Israel. By the way, the Israeli embassy in London is often a place where there are protests. There was a pro-Israel protest by Iranians there yesterday, thanking Israel. The irony of people from and many times in dictatorships protesting against their dictatorships, while in free and semi-free countries you have people protesting for dictatorships. It's ironic and it's terrifying because the only way there's going to be freedom in those countries, well, not the only way, but depending on the country, is both of their countries, their people rise up, but also if the West defends itself, at least when those dictatorships are enemies of the West and start wars against us. Bonnie says, going back to a Christian political majority won't stop the conflict. The solution is any religion or no religion, the right to act freely as one sees fit, free from the enforced will of others. Yes, but uh, you know, I don't know where the first country is going to be that has laissez-faire capitalism, but if it is Lebanon, it's going to be many, many decades or centuries from now. In the foreseeable future, we're not going to see anything positive from Lebanon in the sense that we would want to emulate it. What we might see as positive from Lebanon is them not having an army dedicated to the extermination of the Jews. So if that army is defeated, and if people there get to the point where they want to live, and that could mean live and pray all day. And if they ask me, I'd advise against it, but I don't think they will ask me. If they get to that point, then that is a positive step towards maybe a much better future. But it's a much better future when you go from war to no war. And I think that's the best that we can hope for. And it is something with Israel's recent operations we can hope for. Did I comment on the ground invasion? I was going to say, yeah, there's reports that it might be coming soon. There's also reports that I'm concerned about that say it's going to be a limited operation. It's not going to be as widespread as the one in the 2006 war. And that very may be operationally what's needed. It could be that they don't need as many boots on the ground, but why say it? I hate when I hear those things in advance. Why am I hearing there's going to be a ground operation rather than hearing there already is one? Why am I hearing how many people are going in? I'm not the only one listening. So is the enemy. Don't tell them what's coming. And if you're gonna tell them, look, if this is some sort of a tactic where they say it's not going to be many and it ends up being much more, that's fine. But if not, just don't tell us. Do it and defeat the enemy, and then defeat the other enemies. Because again, the Palestinians are still around, are still fighting. They haven't been defeated, and they haven't. And again, they don't have, as we keep mentioning, they don't have that massive or significant part of their population that doesn't want this. They all, as far as we can tell, want this, and we should give it to them in the sense that they want war, they should get it. And while we celebrate the achievements in Lebanon over the past couple of weeks, let's not forget that Israel has refused to achieve such greatness in Gaza and definitely in the West Bank.
Whenever we hear about something is going to happen before it happens, and probably the most disappointing example of this was the Rafah invasion, which we knew about for months, or something that it's gonna happen. Is sort of like when you were in school and a teacher asks you a question, and because you don't know the answer, you have no confidence, you sort of like go and you wait for like a reaction of someone else, so you know if this is the right or wrong answer, and you can immediately correct yourself. It's a similar way, saying like we are going to invade Lebanon, and sort of waiting who is gonna chime in, who says what, so we can actually make a decision, instead of knowing what the right thing is, having the confidence to do it, having the moral clarity to do it, and you do it. And Israel had this in many ways. They didn't ask, they didn't announce Ismail Haniyeh's assassination. They didn't announce the Beeper attack. They didn't announce killing of Nasrallah. The opposite. I've seen some confirmations about that Netanyahu did go into the UN just to distract. Uh, so we've seen Israel is capable of this. Israel knows what is the right thing, and yet, we had someone in the chat saying, or in the comment section, on a different video, saying something like, are we going to apologize to Israel because we've been criticizing, but now Israel is doing something? Well, Israel is still not doing what is actually necessary, what is actually needed. It's still lacking. And, of course, to the extent it does what it needs to be done, we'll like it. We want to see, but we want to see more. We want to see it fully. It's this the attack on Hezbollah, now that they've announced the ground invasion with the possibilities that it might be limited. Now it's a half-assed job. Now, are you actually going to fully commit to it? Are you actually going to do what's necessary to finally finish this conflict? Because this is not something that started on October 7th. I'll use that phrase. History didn't start on October 7th. Conflict with Hezbollah hasn't started on October 8th, technically. It has been going on for decades. And that's one of the reasons why Israel was so well prepared, is because they had so much time to basically figure out the best way to dismantle Hezbollah. But now that you have them there, do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Christian, for the super chat. Christian says, I'm not a soldier, but if I were, I'd love to join the IDF, saying I want to fight for the living against the armies of the dead. Game of Thrones reference. Yes, but I believe that is a reference of when Jon Snow spoke to Mance Rayder and pretended to be on their side while actually being on the other side. But it was a great line when he said, I want to fight for the side that fights for the living. Have I come to the right place? And that is definitely the way that the armies of the dead, which are all the armies in the Middle East, other than the IDF, that people in those countries, some of them do want to fight for the side that fights for the living, and hopefully they will be inspired by what Israel has been doing these past couple of weeks. It really is, if it goes in the right direction, potentially, I said this yesterday and I'll say it again today, could be a historical, these could be days that we're living through now that are going to be talked about for centuries, if not decades, in a positive way. Could also be in a negative way if we don't do the right thing. But that will be the topic of today's episode of the reality show, which starts in a couple of minutes. Make sure you tune in. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you on the reality show in a couple of minutes.